Hello history. Welcome to the new series Science in London. Episode 1, When the Earth Stopped Being Flat. About scientific breakthroughs that happened here and how they changed the world and our lives. Words science, scientist have only been used since the early 19th century, but the science itself is as old as human race. Before, we called them natural philosophers. We will talk about science in the UK, but it didn't suddenly start here. And that's why in the first episode, I will give you some background and go back to ancient discoveries and theories that shaped our world. The very beginning is unknown because we can tell only what was happening since the invention of writing in Sumer around 3,500 years BC. Sumerians also gave us 7 days a week, use of number 60 to measure time, and mathematics, without which no science would be possible. Egyptians gave us the writing system because most of current alphabets are based on it. They also had first attempts in astronomy, medicine, and pharmacology. But the biggest development of knowledge started in ancient Greece around 600 years BC. Around this time lived Thales of Miletus. He worked out many useful theories in geometry and mathematics which we still use, like Thales' theorem, that if we cut triangle with parallel lines, these angles will be the same. He was also observing the sun and how the weather changes throughout the year, and was the first to explain why seasons change and divided year into 365 days. A little younger was another Greek who presented us with another useful theory, Pythagoras, and his famous right-angled triangle and the relation between the fields built on it. It is still of a great use in construction, navigation, and space planning. People believed that the Earth was flat and was resting on water or supported by something underneath. But Anaximander said it's unsupported and is just suspended in space with the moon and stars and sun around it. It was a genius idea way ahead of its time. If you think of it, he imagined gravity forces that kept it all together. But to describe and calculate it, we would have to wait another 2,000 years for Newton. So people lived thousands of years believing that the Earth was flat. Until around 240 BC, Eratosthenes, who lived in Egypt, noticed how shadows look differently in different places at the same time. He lived in the south of Egypt, close to the Tropic of Cancer, so on the first day of summer, the sun was almost directly above their heads and buildings didn't cast any shadow. If the Earth were flat, this would be the case everywhere else. But one year on the same day, he was in the north of the country, and to his surprise, buildings had shadows, which would suggest that the Earth is round. But this wasn't enough for him. He wanted to know how big it is, so he started his measurements and calculations. He measured the length of the shadow along the way, which gave him different angles of the sunrise in different places. And knowing the distance between two places, he could calculate circumference of the Earth and concluded it was 252,000 Egyptian stadia, equivalent to over 39,000 kilometers. Today we know it's 40,076, so he was off only by 700 kilometers, just 1.4% difference. Now they know that the Earth is round and is suspended in space, so they started looking further. Still without any telescopes, of course. Just staring in the sky night after night. When you do it every night, you notice that most of the stars are in the same distance between themselves. But every now and then, there is something else. Shines like other stars, but often changes position or just disappears. So Greeks called them planetes asteres, wandering stars, or planetae wanderers. With naked eye, they could see 5 of them: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, as named later by Romans, like Ptolemy, who came up with the geocentric system around 150 AD. The system was wrong, as we know, but there was someone else 400 years earlier who got it right. Aristarchus of Samos, very much forgotten, who had the right idea that the sun was in the middle, but he couldn't prove it mathematically. Unfortunately, geocentric system by Ptolemy was easier to understand and to explain. That's why it became generally accepted. Well, poor Aristarchus, that's what happens when you almost 2000 years ahead of your times. With the collapse of the Roman Empire, development of scientific knowledge slowed down in Western Europe for hundreds of years. Many ancient sources were lost or forgotten. At the same time, science was very much growing in the Islamic world, until 13th century when Mongols' expansion destroyed it. Islamic scholars gave us Arabic numerals, magnifying glass, syringe, fountain pen, guitar, perfected distillation of alcohol, hence the name, the same as algorithm, algebra, and many other starting with al. Much more they did also in medicine, chemistry, and astronomy. Luckily, scholars in Europe eventually started catching up. First, Copernicus in 16th century showed us the solar system properly. In 17th century London, Isaac Newton explained how it works and calculated gravity forces. Around the same time, Galileo in Italy started using telescope and universe became more familiar. But we had to wait until 1968 to see the proof when this photo was taken. Only 50 years ago, we could finally see what Eratosthenes deducted and calculated over 2000 years ago. But they wouldn't be able to fly there if Galileo wouldn't see it through the telescope, if Newton wouldn't calculate gravity forces, if Copernicus wouldn't put the solar system in order, if Eratosthenes wouldn't say that the earth is round, and he wouldn't think of it if Anaximander wouldn't say that it's just suspended in space. That's how it all comes together in the wonderful history of science. And from the next episode, I will focus on specific discoveries and inventions that happen in London, England, and the UK. But I will often reference scientists from other countries because this exchange of ideas and contributions are crucial for the development of it all. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more. And if you have any questions, put it in comments or look for me on my social media. Thank you very much. Bye bye.